Some moments burn themselves into your memory so deeply that time can't erase them, no matter how hard you try. They replay in your head exactly as they first sounded. For me, it was a sentence whispered in the middle of the night, one I never expected to hear from the man I trusted like a son. It was just after 2 a.m. when I woke up with my throat dry as sandpaper. The farmhouse was silent, wrapped in darkness, except for a thin blade of moonlight slipping through the hallway window. I eased out of bed, already bracing myself for the floorboards that love to announce every step. I was halfway down the hall when I heard a voice, low, strained, urgent. "Do it now. Harder. Put it right there." I stopped cold. The voice belonged to Richard, my son-in-law, my daughter Susan's husband, the father of my granddaughter, a man I had known for nearly 2 decades. My heart slammed against my ribs as I stood there in my nightgown, barely breathing. The bathroom door was shut, but light leaked out from underneath, drawing a thin yellow line across the carpet. Then I heard more sounds, wet, unsettling noises, followed by a muffled groan. "Push deeper. Don't stop." My stomach twisted so hard I thought I might be sick. Susan was asleep just a few steps away, exhausted from her job at the school, and here was her husband, awake in the bathroom at 2 a.m., whispering words that made my skin crawl. I didn't hear another voice, no laughter, no reply, just him. I stood there frozen, my mind racing toward conclusions I didn't want to imagine. Was he on the phone, watching something he shouldn't be? Or worse, was my daughter's marriage unraveling right under my roof? My hand hovered near the doorknob, shaking. Part of me wanted to fling it open and demand answers. Another part was terrified of what I might see if I did. So instead, I backed away slowly, my thirst forgotten, and returned to my bedroom. Sleep never came. I sat on the edge of my bed, listening to the house creak and settle, replaying his words again and again. When I finally heard the bathroom door open and his footsteps retreat toward his room, the damage was already done. By morning, nothing felt the same anymore. And as the sun rose over that quiet farmhouse, I had no idea that what I'd heard wasn't a betrayal, but something far more dangerous. I thought I'd overheard something shameful, but by the next morning, I realized the truth was far worse, and it was already destroying him. Morning light has a way of pretending everything is normal, even when it isn't. The kitchen looked the same as always, warm sunlight, the smell of coffee, the comforting rhythm of routine. But the man sitting at the table wasn't the Richard I knew. He looked awful. His skin was pale, his eyes sunken and dark like he hadn't slept in days. A thin sheen of sweat clung to his forehead despite the cool air. When he shifted in his chair, he winced, and that's when I noticed the limp. Susan moved around the kitchen, cheerful as ever, flipping pancakes and chatting about school. Emily sat at the table with her book, half eating her cereal. Life carried on, unaware of the secret sitting between us. Richard barely touched his food. This was a man who normally ate like he'd worked a 12-hour shift, which until recently he had. Now he just pushed pancakes around his plate, hands trembling slightly when he lifted his coffee cup. "Sleep okay?" Susan asked. "Fine," I lied quickly, avoiding his eyes. Richard didn't look up. When Susan rested a hand on his shoulder, he flinched, just for a second, but I saw it. The guilt in his eyes hit me harder than any confirmation ever could. Something was wrong, deeply wrong. Later, after Susan and Emily left, Richard headed toward the shed, favoring one foot like every step hurt. He claimed he'd twisted his ankle on a job, but I knew that was a lie. He hadn't worked in weeks. I waited until he was outside, then did something I never thought I'd do. I snooped. The bathroom trash told the story first. Blood-streaked gauze, soaked and crumpled. The smell hit me immediately. Infection. I'd smelled it before, back when I worked as a nursing assistant. Under the sink, hidden behind cleaning supplies, I found syringes, antiseptic, and more bandages. This wasn't something minor. In the bedroom, I found socks stained the same way, always the right one. Painkillers nearly empty. Evidence everywhere if you knew how to look. Suddenly, those whispered words from the night before made terrible sense. He wasn't doing something shameful. He was trying to treat himself, and he was losing. By the time Susan came home that evening, I knew enough to be afraid, but not enough to know how bad it really was. I finally understood what those words meant, but what I found next would prove he was already in far more danger than any of us realized. That night, Susan told me something that made my heart drop. She was pregnant. Instead of joy, her voice trembled with fear. Richard had been distant for weeks, locking the bathroom door, avoiding her touch, pulling away emotionally. She thought he didn't want her anymore. I wanted to scream the truth, but I couldn't, not yet. The next night, I listened again as Richard slipped into the bathroom. This time, I understood every sound. The groan of pain, liquid splashing, his whispered instructions to himself. It's too full. Drain it. Don't stop. I didn't knock. I waited. The next morning, I cornered him. When I told him I knew about the bathroom, the supplies, the lies, his shoulders collapsed like he'd been holding up the world alone. Slowly, shaking, he removed his boot. The sight of his foot nearly took my breath away. What had once been a blister was now an open, infected wound, raw, swollen, oozing, and ringed with dead tissue. The smell alone told me how bad it was. "This isn't just infected," I told him quietly. "This can kill you." That's when the truth finally spilled out. No insurance, no work, diabetes he wasn't managing, fear of amputation, fear of failing his family, fear of becoming useless. So instead of asking for help, he hid. He drained the wound himself, watched videos online, pretended everything was fine. I helped him clean it properly that day, but I knew it wasn't enough. No home treatment could fix what was happening inside his body. Still, he begged for time. Time to tell Susan, time to find work, time to feel like a man again. Against my better judgment, I gave it to him. But infections don't wait, and neither does the damage they cause. I thought I'd bought him time, but within days, his body would make the decision for us. The collapse came without warning. One moment, Richard was standing in the kitchen. The next, he hit the floor. Susan screamed. Emily cried. I went into nurse mode instantly, checking his pulse, lifting his pant leg, seeing the red streaks climbing higher than ever. Sepsis. By the time the ambulance arrived, his fever was raging. At the hospital, doctors moved fast. IV antibiotics, scans, emergency surgery. Susan finally learned everything. The lies, the wound, the fear, the pride. She didn't yell. She cried. The surgeon later told us how close we came. The infection had reached the bone. Amputation had been a real possibility. Death even more so. But somehow, by sheer luck and fast intervention, they saved his foot and his life. When I finally saw him in recovery, pale but breathing, he squeezed Susan's hand and whispered the words he should have said months ago. I should have asked for help. That was the real lesson in all of it. Pride nearly killed him. Silence almost destroyed a family. And I learned that love doesn't mean protecting people from the truth. It means making sure they survive long enough to face it. If I'd opened that bathroom door sooner, everything might have been different. Hospitals have a strange stillness to them after a crisis passes. Machines beep softly, footsteps echo down long halls, and life hangs in a fragile balance between relief and fear. Richard survived the surgery, but the doctors made it clear this wasn't over. The infection had been stopped just in time. Another day, maybe two, and we would have been planning a funeral instead of physical therapy schedules. Susan sat beside his bed for hours, barely moving. When he finally woke fully, groggy and weak, she didn't scold him. She didn't yell. She just asked one question. "Why didn't you tell me?" Richard cried. Not quietly either, but the kind of broken sobs that come from months of fear finally escaping. He told her everything about the blister, the diabetes, the lost jobs, the insurance, the shame, the nights locked in the bathroom trying to fix himself because he didn't know how to admit he was drowning. Susan listened in silence, tears streaming down her face. When he finished, she took his hand and said something that shattered me. "You didn't fail us by getting sick. You almost failed us by hiding it." That was the moment everything changed. The doctors were firm. Weeks of IV antibiotics, strict diabetes control, physical therapy, lifestyle changes. No shortcuts, no pride. And this time, Richard didn't argue. Emily visited every day after school, bringing drawings and homework to show her dad. One afternoon, she looked at him and said, "Next time you're scared, you tell us, okay?" He nodded. I watched that man shrink and rebuild himself all at once. Financially, things were still hard. Medical bills piled up, my savings were gone. But Susan reached out for help, community programs, hospital aid, church support, things Richard never would have allowed before. And help came. Weeks later, when Richard finally came home, walking slowly, leaning on a cane, he stopped me in the hallway. "You saved my life," he said quietly. I shook my head. "No," I told him, "you did, when you finally stopped fighting alone." Some nights I still remember those words I overheard through the bathroom door, how terrifying they sounded without context, how close we came to losing everything because no one wanted to speak the truth. Silence almost killed him. Love saved him. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Pain doesn't make you weak. Hiding it does. If you think staying silent makes you strong, this story proves just how dangerous that lie can be.